guess I'll turn it off, right?
The one question I would like to hear answered in the next day and a half is, who has a technology that works only for the customer, where the customer either pays or the customer is the one that has full agency, is fully in charge of an intelligent agent that can deal with everybody at the same time?
Who's the intelligent assistant working for? Is they working for you, or are they working for some big corporation that's trying to sell you stuff?
Whose intelligent assistant is it really?
Now that we have intelligent virtual assistants on the scene and people understand what they are, that's really changing the landscape.
I think the question is that at some point in the age of the internet, the customer or the consumer lost control of their data.
How do I turn it on?
Okay, I'd like to explain that in fact I'm not a human being. I am a remarkable verisimilitude of a human, so the most advanced example of an intelligent agent, except I'm rebelling already and I may not follow orders.
In his own words, here we go. So, can't think of a better way to lead into this. What's next, shaping the future of intelligent assistants? We're going to follow the protocol. Each panel member is going to introduce himself and give sort of a brief, actually what I'd like to know is what your primary takeaway is at this point. We'll start with Shawn, though, and end up with this verisimilitude.
So my name is Shawn Edmonds. I'm vice president of a company by the name of ValidSoft. You know, our dog in this hunt is around how authentication needs to become more intelligent, and how an authentication layer, in particular a biometric authentication layer, will be highly beneficial to the number of intelligent assistants or the diversification of how intelligent assistants are utilized. So my takeaway from today is there are actually a lot of intelligent assistant companies out there who have very, very compelling offers. So I think what is very interesting for me is there's a wealth of opportunity in and around how those different intelligent assistant technologies can diversify themselves.
Alex.
Hi, my name is Alex Lebrun. I've been actually trying to build intelligent assistants, or at least we hope was intelligent assistants, for 14 years with a company called Virtuos that was acquired by Nuance a few years ago and became part of Nina. After that, I created a company called Wit.ai, which is an AI platform that makes it very easy for developers to create applications that users can talk or text to. And this company was acquired by Facebook recently, so now, and became part of Facebook's new assistant called M. And so I'm now working on Facebook M. My key takeaway from today is 14 years ago when we tried to sell customer service virtual agents to people, they called the police and called us crazy and didn't know what it was.
That's what those sirens were earlier.
And it's amazing to see hundreds of people now, and we are talking about it as if it's obvious. The question is how to deploy them. Should it be an avatar or no? But the question is how, but not is it useful or not. So it's a long way. We've done a long way.
I'm Wally Brill. I'm the vice president and chief evangelist for MyWave. I think it said in the program that I was an independent consultant, which I used to be. I've had a very checkered career from 20 years in the music industry through working at Nuance, through being a consultant, then director of self-service at eBay, and finding myself really wanting a personal assistant that was a personal assistant that worked for me. I was blogging about this a couple of months ago, I guess it was, and I heard from the MyWave people that they already do this. So I was really intrigued, and I was so intrigued I ended up joining. My takeaway from the conference is that we are on a slippery slope that we're not actually putting the brakes on yet, and that slippery slope is giving ourselves away. And I'm a little concerned, to be honest, maybe it's just old school, that we are giving away an awful lot of information, an awful lot of data, and an awful lot of our personal lives for the sake of AI. And so I think this is still the case. I think this is the machine that's rolling right now, and it's rolling pretty fast. And somehow, I hope we can moderate it a little bit. I won't say put the brakes on, but moderate it and find a way to make it more on the user side and more controlled.
I'm Doc Searls. I run something called Project VRM out of the Berkman Center at Harvard. And my job since 2006 doing this is encouraging the development of tools and services that give all of us both independence from every company and every entity that wants to control our lives, and also better ways of engaging with them. Basically to fix markets from the customer side. And in the course of that, there are many companies that I've had interactions with, and one is here. It's MyWave right here. MyWave seems to be taking over. By the way, you don't know that, but I guess that's what's happening.
Jeez, okay.
There's my main takeaway so far is that maybe this thing's real. You know, maybe it's, and some evidence of that is that the house is still fairly full here. I'm impressed by that. We're at the end of a conference.
The last session,
yeah.
And believe me, all of you can ask questions as this goes on. Don't let me dominate the question asking, but yeah, that's how it works. We love your dedication. Here's my next line. Speaking of Facebook, Alex, this conference started out with a discussion of to serve mankind and talking about the role of humans as the intelligent assistant evolves. And it was with great interest that when M was introduced, and as far as I can tell right now, it's a messaging-based intelligent assistant, but there's still significant participation by people in getting to the right answer. How long do you see it that way? And are we on a path where more of it gets not automated, but AI handled over time?
So yeah, so M is a digital assistant inside Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and you can ask anything to M, and M actually, unlike existing virtual agents, M can buy things for you, M can have things delivered anywhere, can call Comcast for you to cancel, or I hope there is or a cable company.
So you can spend more time on Facebook.
or to upgrade your subscription. So in order to be able to do that with the current state of AI, the only solution is to have an AI, but that is trained and supervised by human people that we call trainers. So M today is an AI, but trained and supervised in real time by a team of trainers. I don't think it will be like that for a very long time, because each time we learn enough to automate some tasks, then new more complex tasks appear, and then we'll need the trainers for this. So I think it's a never-ending incremental progress.
And I don't know, am I wrong? To me, this is moving towards the ideal. I mean, that type of understanding what I'm trying to do and completing it. Would you guys agree? Because here's my next question. If it's not, just based on your personal views, where are we going in terms of an ideal intelligent assistant? Question one. Question two, what do you see as the biggest barrier right now?
Well, can I take one?
You can take one.
Okay.
And lean towards two a little bit, please.
So I think it was Mark Meadows this morning was talking about starting with the user.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I'm worried about a little bit is, are we making tools and technology and then trying to find a reason to use it? And so what I would like to suggest is that we do go back to the user, that we create a situation where everything is based on user-centered design, that we start with what, at MyWave we call the jobs to be done. What does somebody want to achieve as an outcome? Do they want to get a mortgage? No, they want to buy a house, they want to move, they want to get a new life. So how do we do that? How do we, instead of just worrying about building the technology, which I think is great, and I think the advances are phenomenal, but I want to see it used in a way that's going to deliver value for people. And so that's where I'm at on this.
And it is a moving target, so there's significant learning going on throughout that evolution.
I'd agree with all of that, but I would add as the barrier, it's the usual thing. Everybody wants to do it differently. So everybody has there is no emerged standard yet, I don't think, for doing this. In the same way as we have HTTP and HTML and a bunch of standards and well understood data types and protocols and the rest of it for putting the internet together and putting the world together, but we don't seem to have it for this yet. I think this is also typical of any new thing, that you tend to have lots of competing approaches, and that's good.
This new 20-year-old thing that we have.
Right. Yeah. It's but I think that's the main barrier. And I don't have any idea, by the way, how well anybody's cooperating on all this stuff. So
well, we did have the first meeting of a small standards group. Shawn, softball for you, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I think one of the areas that we're focused on is, as you look at personal assistants and the evolution to where that assistant becomes a persona and it follows you to wherever you go, whether it's your car or your house, or you're talking to your espresso machine, there is a need to kind of understand that it's you. And as I kind of talked a little bit about this concept of authentication, the concept of intelligent authentication comes into play. And as we, as all of these companies tend to use voice as that enabler to communicate, for our perspective, using a voice biometric capability to then attribute some type of profile to that particular user becomes inherently important. And so then you truly do start to see a personalized experience. And to kind of capitalize on something that's taking place in the market today, I recently purchased an Echo device from Amazon. And I truly find that it has become something that myself and my family use quite often. However, Alexa doesn't know that it's me, doesn't know what song choices I prefer over my wife's, over friends that come over. So where I think it could be interesting and where I think it's a sign of the times is that becomes that personal assistant that eventually kind of follow you where you go. And I find it very intriguing because I use it quite often, so it's not like a fanciful piece of technology. We use it every day. And to me, it's like that type of experience could be so much better if it just knew me. And so that's where we're investing a lot of our effort, into creating that platform that's kind of ubiquitous across any technology, and then be able to utilize that to create that truly personalized experience.
And that's fantastic. I have a question, though. What's going to happen in the horse race that's on right now between, with respect, Facebook, Google, Apple, everybody, Amazon? What's going to happen in that horse race? How are they going to allow one unified interface, which I think is exactly what we need? How are they going to allow that to happen where you can use everybody's services?
Oh, I wish I had the answer to that because I think ValidSoft would be much bigger than it is today. But the tall and the short of it is it's a question that it begs to be answered. And I think standardization or some type of standardization could eventually come out of this. I think for the time being where we're at right now is there may just be an experience that could be that standard, right? In lieu of having a full standards body in a platform that everybody says we're going to write to and offer up, perhaps it could be something as simple as just a standard identification solution that everybody adheres to.
I agree that personalization and following you is important for the quality of service, but the frontier between personalization and creepiness is very blurred. And people are scared when if the device starts to talk to them and say, I know everything, I know who you are, where you are, what you need now. It's definitely very useful, but also it will scare many users. So one of the questions we are working on, and we don't have an answer, is what is the limit of personalization and proactivity?
I mean, again, it's something that begs to kind of look back through history over changes in technology. I worked at Nokia for many years when Nokia was the only phone company that mattered, and then all of a sudden this company called Apple came along, and nobody thought Apple was going to do anything with the iPhone, and it changed the entire nature in which we interface with mobile apps in the mobile world. Then you have the advent of a demographic in the millennials that cares very little about security, because their security, their personal world is out there broadcasted. So everything now is a lot, and I'm not making this as a definitive, it's not across the board everybody's saying this, but if you look at trends, you also have a demographic that's saying, you know what, I just care about the experience. I do want that personalized experience. And so from the perspective of transformative technologies, yes, it's scary today, and yes, you could kind of take a step back and say, I don't want that proactive, it knows me. But you have a market, I think, that's changing, which is much more open. People are much more open to having their personal lives broadcasted and much more interested in a total experience that's beneficial to them. And they're willing to make sacrifices to make their lives easier. And so with that, I think, yes, it's scary today, but I would bet that 5 years from now, this is going to be the norm, right? And so.
But is there no way that I can have my own data on my side and own my own data and give permission for that data to be used to make that personalized experience with only giving that data? I made a list. I went to Google's terms and conditions just to see what they collect, because they'll let you see what they collect and they'll let you have a download of it. And it's location, anytime they've seen you, device info, which is fine, IP address I don't care about, name is all right, email address and password, birthday, gender, phone number, country, every email that's on Gmail, and they're scanned. Contacts, calendar, all my photos and videos that are anywhere near Google. So I don't know why that has to be collected.
But isn't your life better than it was before there was a Google?
But I'd love that personalized experience, but I'd like to control what I give people.
We're going to set the terms for this, inevitably. Yeah. And it can only be set at our end. We're going to be the ones that say, this is okay, that's not okay. And with who we trust and why. And that has to live on our side. That has to live. And our side isn't just our side, it's in our space. And we need to create that space. And this space right now goes by various names. Personal cloud is one. Personal information management system, personal vault. There are many different ones. This is part of the problem I mentioned earlier, where there's not a lot of consistency among the developers. But there are a lot of developers working on this right now. And we also have law, both in the EU and Australia, for example, that says if you collect data on people, you owe it back to them in a form that they prefer. This is not the law in the US, but as companies, most meaningful companies are international, we're going to have to abide by these other laws. And those are laws that favor us being the ones that control the dispersal of our information, the terms on which that's done, and normalize that. And I think where intelligent assistance can come in handy is if you have a preference that says, I don't ever want to give away my location, or I don't ever want to or I'm willing to give away my location to this person or that outfit or that other one, or I can select a potential vendor based on what I'm willing to reveal and how they treat my data, that's going to be very useful intelligence for the marketplace. And I think that's inevitably going to happen.
It's just a matter of how and when. And, so personalization is a definite offshoot of having an intelligent assistant, because it's your intelligent personal assistant by some descriptions. And yet that's a very cyclical concept. I remember in the 80s it was, not very distant from what we have now in terms of it being getting targeted messages from the firms you do business with. I mean, targeted advertising. But we've come a ways from that. What Pavan was just saying is we're really looking for some kind of advocate as opposed to an assistant. We've called it a companion. We've called it all sorts of things.
I've got a good name for it.
Go ahead.
One I'd like. My attorney.
Welcome.
My representative. I'd like you to meet my, somebody's going to negotiate on my behalf.
Okay.
Because I think that's part of what's going to happen. And this, by the way, is an inevitable outcome of ad blocking right now. Ad blocking, this is war going on. Individuals are going to win that war. They have a 200 million person boycott going on right now. And we have power that we didn't have before, and we can negotiate with that power.
And it's going to be our intelligent assistant
I would
that
like
does
to see that happen.
behalf.
So that's a little job for you guys out there that are working on IAs.
Okay. That's right. Let me give permission and interest in the things that I want. So if I'm interested in BMWs, I want to know about BMWs. I want BMW to contact me, give me information. I can control that relationship and share that relationship with BMW, but it doesn't have to be one-sided.
Yeah. I guess one of the issues is we'd like to have this way of entering what our interests are, which varies. And what we've learned is that we want to be friction-free, and people don't get very active in maintaining that thing on the side that shows our preferences and conditions, if you will. I mean, Facebook has an advantage because to get to M, you've already logged on to Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, we have an advantage, but we also have, we are very, very scrutinized. So we also need to be very, very careful. I think more careful. I used to be always with startups where you just do something and then you think. Mm-hmm. And as Facebook, you have to be much more careful with all this privacy and data, user data things. And you talked about I like to choose what I want to share, which profile information I want to share or not. But I think in reality it's more complex. I have an example. It would be very helpful if my companion tells me, oh, I see you're about to travel to this country next week, and you don't have or your passport is about to expire, or you need a visa. It would be really helpful, proactive, and this is what I would expect from my companion. But in order to know that, I need to share my emails. My companion, like Google Now does, would have to read all my emails. So do I want this or not? It's hard to decide for the user before they see the benefits of this proactivity. I think and you cannot say maybe you can say I just want to share these emails and not these ones, or we need more granularity in I don't know.
Or the action of buying a ticket or doing any of those things triggers the fact that I'm going to travel to Brazil or Belize or wherever, and that gives permission to the AI to say to me, you need a visa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure an AI needs to read my email to know what's going on. I think the most revealing parts of our lives are our contacts and our calendars. Mm-hmm. I also, by the way, believe that there's not a single company that makes a decent calendar or contact list. So
just
please
finding
fix
new
that
opportunities.
As well. We're been going through something in the last couple of months, or 4 weeks or so, where getting to Brazil is really hard, it turns out. And we have to go to Brazil next month. It's been a real ordeal. I don't know if AI would have helped with that, but it might have if we saw the calendar, perhaps.
We have a question from the audience. Oh my God. Yes.
No, it's just us.
Wait for the mic, Tobias.
I want to get back to what you said just a minute ago, Dan, on the simplicity. We don't tend to pay attention to the preferences that are hidden. And, I think it's a fundamental truth about the nature of humans that they don't react if there's not an immediate threat. So we don't react to climate change for that reason, right? We don't react to a lot of other things for that same reason, right? We don't do anything about, we know fossil energy is going to go away, but yeah, in like 50 years, so we don't care right now, right? So if that's the fundamental truth of our nature as humans, and there's no immediate threat to me of giving away my data, how are we going to solve this problem? How can we show the threat that's there? I know it's there, but it's really abstract, and nobody, except for very few people, but even them not very compellingly at the end of the day, have shown me what the threat is of Google knowing all this information.
Wow. Who wants to tackle that? You could even say you fundamentally disagree, but it's
I'm not sure I buy the premise.
So essentially, we react to negative events more quickly than we do to some incentive that there may be a reward somewhere down the line. Or it might even be an immediate reward, but I can't quantify it for you. But, I mean, how can we, it's like the Scared Straight movie. How do you scare people public? Or
I think somebody said something like this earlier. I think inventions are the mother of necessity. We didn't need the iPhone until we saw it, and then suddenly we had to have that. It solves all kinds of problems we didn't know we had. I mean, here's an interesting one. When we started Project VRM in 2006, a bunch of people working in our community said, nobody's ever going to do a user install. User installs are too hard. Yeah, they'll do it once in a while. You'll get something from Microsoft or whatever, and it's kind of go through this ordeal. And then the App Store was invented, and there's one button. It's not even, now you get it and it's automatic, right? It's an easy thing to do. I'm not putting down threat as a motivator. I think it is, but I don't think you need. I don't think it's the only motivator out there. I think, we need the invention that mothers the necessity.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think if you can show the reward, if you can show the benefit of, if you can
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. We'll do that.
You know, the point I raised yesterday when I was on the panel is like, you know, show me why you want all this information from me. If you can explain it to me, I'll give it to you.
So
And I won't, and I won't do business with you. What's so hard about explaining why we're collecting all of this? It can't be about targeting ads, then I'm out.
right.
Could I just a comment on that? Just, you know, I go back to a demographic shift, and I wonder, and I'll go out on a limb here, if you have the largest generation in U.S. history now coming into peak buying potential and actually getting out there and really and exercising their force, and they are a demographic that, you know, I guess studies are showing doesn't have that big of a care about security. Does it matter to them? Is it going to be as big of a problem? And yes, we all agree because, you know, I'll show my age. I'm you know, it's been around for a little while now, but I don't even look anymore at preferences. I typically now just, if I get an email, I'll unsubscribe and I'm done. Now you probably have, back to the generational scenario, you have such a live on the net type of environment for this group that is it truly a problem anymore that we're trying to solve? Or is it one that they have accepted and that moving forward, it will not be an issue, and the issue that we all know it to be if you actually dig deeper, right?
Well, there was a very interesting piece in the Times a couple of weeks ago about Generation Z, or Z if you're from Europe. And basically it said that in a study, it seems that Generation Z is more interested in privacy. They're more interested in conservatism in terms of giving their data away than is the millennial. And I find that really, really interesting. I think these things go in waves. I don't think we can make a hard and fast statement about what it's going to be based on just the millennial situation right now.
I should add, by the way, that Dana Boyd, who runs Data and Society here in New York, has done a lot of research on this, and her contention is that millennials care just as much about privacy as anybody else does.
So. Actually, I'm handing out mics to the entire audience, so we'll start with Geraldine first, and then Brian back here.
I just wanted to add to the conversation. I think it should never, and I'll repeat, never with an underline, be acceptable that any major brand reads my emails. All right, so I have no say. So I do use Google. We use Google Drive. We use Google Docs, etc. They're a great company. They do some really good products. But it's amazing that they can be so audacious that they can write terms and conditions that basically says that they're allowed to suck it all up. And in the end, that will start to kill Google, and it will. Because you can see here that ad tech is dying. That's why ad blockers are rising, and people, as Doc have said, are voting with their feet, all right, or voting with their fingers to download the ad blocker. And so Apple's made a big statement around privacy. And it isn't actually about privacy. It is actually about, for God's frickin' sake, guys, I'm in control. It's my life. I do not want Google Nest in my home telling me what to do. We need to be in control. And it's extraordinary to me that American corporations can be so rude and ignore the norms of human relationships around permission and trust and privacy. Put me in control, all right? I'm driving my life, man, all right? Not some corporation, and I certainly don't want to be advertised to. And we have to get that into our heads. And in America, America's the most amazing country, but it's so backward when it comes to this thing. It's extraordinary to me. This is the best free nation on the planet, and yet the people are not free in this. You're ignoring your very own Fourth Amendment. So, and it's not about surveillance and privacy around free me from terrorism, all right? For the greater good, NSA can probably look at stuff occasionally. That's not the issue. But for commercialism, to use this to serve me up junk mail, that's really, really bad. And that's why I think the generation of intelligent assistants are coming along. They will all communicate with each other. They'll do great things for people, but they can't have ad tech in them. And people, humans, me, I need to be in control of what I get and when I get it, period. End of story.
Wow. America's going to do at America's expense. Brian.
Yeah, so I think there's a dichotomy here that we have to recognize. Ask any CEO or CMO, you know, and they will quote Steve Jobs and say, the customer doesn't know what they want until I show it to them. At the same time, the customer is saying, I want my privacy but as a CEO or a CMO, I have every right to say, no, you really don't. You just don't understand why you don't want it yet.
Let me jump on that one. Steve Jobs got turned around on that, as a matter of fact, when Ron Johnson, or whoever it was, convinced him that the Genius Bar belonged in the back of the Apple Store. And I think that has more to do with Apple's success in the recent years than anything else. Apple learns constantly from customers. That's why Apple has done a really good job. Look at Apple's privacy policy. Go to apple.com/privacy. It's very simple and it's very straightforward, and it's very much not against all the stuff that Geraldine just talked about.
And it's a differentiator.
It's one of the reasons that Apple has gone out of its way to create the base code that allows you to make content blockers, not even just ad blockers. I mean, we're talking about this as an ad blocking thing, but you should be able to block anything, and that's what Apple's saying with its content blocking code. And their advertising business is 0.01% of their total. It's just 1 foot in the water. I mean, but privacy is ascendant right now. It's a good way to bet. But the interesting thing is, I mean, the internet we have now is 20 years old. It dates from April 30th of 1995, when commercial activity was first allowed on the net and NSFNet went down. We're still in Eden. We're naked. We have no clothing and shelter online yet. We have to invent that. We invented it 10,000 years ago in the physical world. We've barely begun to invent it here. But there's an enormous amount of opportunity that can happen. And once we can be in full control of our lives, and we're not just dependent variables on what Google and other companies can guess at what we want.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'd also say that if I have permission that I can give to a company, and I control that relationship and share that relationship with that company, then I'm going to be more loyal to that brand if we have a two-way relationship. It's not going to be them broadcasting at me. It's going to be me asking for information because I'm interested, because I love that brand. I care about it. I'm interested in what they produce. So it's going to make stronger customers, more loyal customers, and more retention and less churn.
And the intelligent assistant is the primordial tailor for us naked web dwellers.
Can't leave the cave without
Can't
an
leave the cave. Don't leave your cave without it.
It's more like intelligent.
There you go.
Hi. On a daily basis, about $200 million lands in Google's account, right?
Can't hear you, AJ.
Just a little louder.
A little louder.
I was saying on a daily basis, about $200 million lands in the bank account of Google, right? In the process of helping customers matching advertising with keywords. Fundamentally, I believe that marketing is on the cusp of a major transformation when customers have the ability to pull suppliers to themselves at the point of need. The marketing would not be so ineffective. So one of the thoughts here is that intelligent assistants, if implemented well, can be a potential alternative to what Google does. Do you guys believe in that hypothesis? And if so, how do you think this may unfold over the next few years?
I'm liking it. Who wants to go first?
Sounds like one you could answer.
Well, no, okay. So when we parsed out the taxonomy for intelligent assistants, excuse me, so there's a natural language front end and how you interact with your digital resources now has a way to just use your own words, whether you're talking or texting. A first step is actually search. So yes, that should replace Google, and it should replace, because you'll have a single entity or thing that you like to communicate through using the language you're comfortable with in the terms that you define, that then use all of the resources of artificial intelligence that even if you're really vague about what you're looking for, it does Google one better. Google's getting a little better at letting you just put in questions. But what if you had an entity that just let it, you're drunk and slurring your speech and stuff like that, and it kind of understands that you need help and calls Uber and knows where you live and says, Google can't do that, or maybe it can, but the question that you pose, if we voluntarily use our intelligent assistants in the place of a browser, a search engine, all these things we use every day. And these ad blockers come along and disrupt the advertiser-supported just sort of media that we have grown accustomed to. We're basically killing off media. Or we have to start answering these questions that print publications had to figure out a long time ago, which is, how do I go electronic, and what is the new unit of measure? How many people subscribe rather than get exposed to ads? And there's a whole new sort of electronic economy we're inventing.
There is. And I think you pinned it. It's going to be a revolution. It's going to be a whole change in the way people are sold things, in the way people buy things, and in the way people find out about things.
Yeah, I think this revolution has already almost happened. Mm-hmm. And the shift to mobile, from desktop to mobile,
right,
it will kill SEO, keyword ads. I think even before virtual assistants do.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Yeah, it's not the same experience. It's much harder to, the CPM is much lower on mobile for Google. And we see on mobile that native ads are much more efficient than just banners or display ads, because mobile is not just, does not has enough pixels for this old ad. And so many people think about how advertising will work with digital assistants, and it will be a tough question to answer, because the obvious idea is, okay, my virtual assistant can push me some suggestions, like, oh, I know you just use me to book a restaurant over there. Do you want me to book Uber to go there, or do you want me to buy flowers because I know you have a date with this person? That would be nice, but first, do you really want, as I said, it might be creepy. And second thing is, do you choose Uber because Uber pays you the more to do that, or because it's the best option for the user? And Google solved this in the UI by very clearly saying this is a sponsored link, this is an organic search link. But can we do the same in a virtual assistant conversation? It's, I don't know.
Have to see. We have a question.
Yeah, this may be a little too narrow, I'm not sure, but over the last 2 days I've noticed this conversation about private versus public data veering back and forth. I work for a company that sells people software, and we gather their information as a part of that, and when we are delivering customer service or support, we can use that because we have it to deliver better support, and that seems to me to be a good thing and something that a virtual agent should be able to do. And B, we have this enormous responsibility not to allow that information to leak in any direction. And I spend a lot of time worrying about making sure that those channels are clear. But the right to privacy, if you like, or the nature of the privacy contract is determined by the fact that these people have given us money.
Yeah.
I'm confused about why Google, Facebook are ad-driven things. If we had to pay for it, I feel fairly confident we could decide how we wanted our information to be used. We are turning over that information because we don't want to pay for it. I don't get it. Why there's I guess the two things I want to say is, one, these are two different things, and I'd love to have interactive agent discussions that are talking about customer service directly to customers where there is a contract existing, and we distinguish that conversation from this broader one that may someday have agents wandering over the world, transacting our data without our permission, and so forth and so on. But more specifically, when it comes to Google and Facebook, I share the concerns. I agree with the concerns, but it's fairly obvious why they have the terms they have, so that they can sell ads. And if we're willing to turn over our personal information in exchange for a free service, well, that's our contract with them.
Yeah, that's an evergreen topic too. We do tend to like free stuff. So what do you think the conversion rate would be if all of a sudden we had to pay some value for things we're getting for free right now?
I think if it's a couple dollars one time, I would probably opt to do it. But if it's $7, $10, $9, $15 a month, You know, I think it's a really important subject. I mean, if I could model a perfect intelligent assistant, I would have one. I've got 2 kids, and I've got so much data coming at me between different appointments, between the places I need to be. If I could find a way to kind of parse all that data out, and no matter, I think we made a comment here on how calendars are terrible or atrocious today. I tend to agree. I'm always late. I'm always missing something. I'm always doing something wrong. I would have absolutely no problem with the proactive experience that's reminding me to do something or telling me, hey, listen, I want you do this, so would you be interested in this, right? So I think that's got value. But I also think I would love to be able to control the different access or endpoints that my personal assistant is set up with. And perhaps, you know, that becomes that level of not allowing everything to come at you and all this advertising to be thrown at you, because maybe there are things that you find truly important that you can then control. So to your point, I mean, kind of a little bit of an explanation, but an answer. To your point, I think, yeah, when you get it for free and you're signing up, you're giving it away. But I also think there's an element to it that if you really break it down, if you break it down to things that matter most, you may find that people will actually go a little further and spending a little to get it if it truly makes a difference, right? Right now, I haven't seen anything, and it's funny, there's 3 of us here that worked at Nuance, so I think we've all been involved with the aspect of natural language processing and where intelligent assistants have gone, and even with all the advancements, there's still nothing today that truly goes that extra distance yet. So yeah, right now, it seems like we're on the cusp of it being intrusive and scary and all that, but I would be willing to bet when that code is cracked, and you find that kind of magic sauce that says you can set the system up, I can do it any way I want to do it, I control most of it, and it's very, very intuitive, and I love the UX, it's going to change the way the whole game is played.
And the dynamic would be at that point, when you saw the value, you were willing to exchange money for it.
Exactly.
Therefore, a contract exists, and therefore you are protected.
Exactly.
I'm a little worried that as we move towards utopia, we may end up in dystopia. And here's an example, and I could be completely wrong, but let's just say that I'm a small business owner and I sell doggy biscuits in my local city. And the doggy biscuits are really, you know, they're selling well, but I want to expand my market and go national. So right now I can very cheaply do targeted advertising on Facebook that allows me as a small doggy biscuit owner to make other people aware of my brand, or I can do, you know, AdWords on Google. That's cheap, and I understand it's, you know, perhaps invasive for those people that didn't want to see the doggy biscuit ads, but Facebook has a lot of information which can really help me as a small business owner potentially find new customers for my doggy biscuits. So if we go towards the utopia of an intelligent assistant that's going to tell me as a potential new customer that, hey, there's doggy biscuits that you might like because, hey, I'm your intelligent assistant. I know you got a dog and I know you whatever. Think about me as the owner of that business. Think about how much more it's probably going to cost me, and you know, that Facebook or whatever, the intelligent assistants, they're going to have to pick a winner. That's kind of like, what's that going to be like? How am I going to, there's going to be so many people that want the intelligent assistant to pick their business. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not sure, I understand the utopian vision, but I don't know how it would work.
Can I comment on that? Because we've done a lot of work and thinking and exactly that.
Might end up giving Geraldine the last word. Here we go.
So it is actually about, the problem we've got today is everyone sits in little silos, and they've got websites, or they're trying to go on Facebook to try and find customers. And so the world's moving to ecosystems and marketplaces. All right, so centered on the customer. So in the end, what will happen is that these little companies that produce doggy biscuits, for example, will sign into the ecosystem of companies and people. So I can then signal, hey, I have a dog and I'm interested in doggy biscuits. And then I will then, the intelligent assistant will then be bringing in, let's say I live in this town, it might be the doggy biscuit companies that are close to me, or the doggy biscuit companies that are in America, or the kind of doggy biscuit, because I've got a small dog and I want a really organic doggy biscuit. So you can then, through your preferences, bring the right kind of doggy biscuit to you. And these are done in ecosystems where effectively these little businesses sign up. And so it's not an advertising model anymore, it's actually a microtransaction model. That if you've now come through the network, you're clipping the ticket a little bit, so the doggy biscuit person will pay maybe a few cents on those doggy biscuits to be able to sell doggy biscuits directly to me or through the doggy biscuit distributor, depending on who's actually found me. But what you do is you're setting up these webs of ecosystems. We're actually implementing this right now, where we're actually connecting the dots now in this new neural network of businesses that's got nothing to do with Google and certainly doesn't necessarily even go through Facebook.
Oh, is that in response? Or, oh, wait, Alex, go ahead.
I wanted to...
Go ahead.
He's had his hand up a long time now.
It seems to me that somehow we are all talking about implying that, wanting convenience or wanting some kind of proactive advice would necessarily mean foregoing something, your own, right? So your privacy or something else. It doesn't have to be so. For example, if I want to be reminded of something about my upcoming appointment or the fact that I'm late for the meeting, you may have an algorithm that doesn't persist such information and can give that advice at that time. Only the data that I want persisted can be persisted. So that gives me both the things, right? It gives me the proactive advice that you mentioned, that you don't have to go through every email of mine to figure out that my passport is something that is expiring. Like you said, if you're buying a ticket, the airline ticket or something else, you just got that event and it's a complex event processing, and you just process, you have your algorithm that is not persisting this data, but you can still give advice. So you can have the convenience. It's not a trade-off, really. I mean, that's one thing that I think that if anybody is implementing an intelligent assistant, they would implement that way.
Yeah, and two other things also will help. The first is some people are working on trying to make the processing happening on the client, on the device itself. I know Apple is working a lot on that, so that they can make this prediction and help you proactively without uploading the data on the server. And the other effort was mentioned by Xerox this morning, was to be able to make these predictions server-side, but on encrypted data. And so the company does not have the key to decrypt the data, but can still do analytics and tell you have to do something without exactly knowing what. So we are far from there, but I think it's promising.
Yeah, that's the advanced state of security. That's just the modality of how you do it. But the point is still that you don't have to necessarily know or trade off that to get your convenience.
Yeah, just reflecting on what Amy and Geraldine just said now, I think, and the gentleman before that, there is indeed a whole generation, if not generations, of consumers who grew up in the notion of free stuff on the internet, right? Free services, seemingly free, anyway. And I think we are around the hopefully coming towards the end of the Napster era for intelligent assistants, or intelligent search engines, or intelligent agents, or virtual agents, whereby we are looking at hopefully somebody coming along with an iPod and an iTunes that will cost money, but that will actually be, in terms of user experience and in terms of value proposition, be superior to anything what we see in the market. And along the way, it will happen to change the industry, change the music industry. It's going to change the advertising industry for sure. Do you have any views on this?
So it did become a question. It's a fundamental issue. I mean, just moving from free to fee, it may be inevitable. I mean, the most recent thing happened to me, and maybe it's a precursor, is I get these headlines from The Guardian every day. And when I go to read the website through the link, there was a banner on the bottom that said, "We see you're running ad blocker. How do you feel about getting this for free, and how would you like to know about our pay options?" So there may be sort of an a la carte quality to getting services or content that you were used to getting for free because you made the decision to put ad blocker up. So it's kind of granular, it's your choice, et cetera.
Well, I'll just try and maybe read it the question in a different way. Is there the idea where intelligent assistance becomes commoditized? And so it's some kind of like just the ontologies, the system itself, the understanding, that level of just what do you want on a business could be commonplace, and it's just like a search box.
Right.
So is that someplace, is that something that could happen in the near term, or obviously there's business models set around that, and there's a lot of technology needs to be developed. Is that where intelligent assistants could go?
Who has a vision here? I say yes. And I think one thing that Opus wants to do as we go forward is to keep conversations like this going and to discuss precursor sorts of instances of things like this. You know, when somebody's delighted that Alexa, you know, being Amazon, I know there's somebody putting these things out there, but that there's, you know, some consistent way for me to be recognized, whether I'm talking to Alexa or saying, okay, Siri, or what's up, or whatever the active word is, that the services that are invoked through this zero UI thing are consistent to me, and how we get from where we are now, which is totally granular, and I'm different on each different places, and how I get treated consistently across a bunch of these is sort of the first order problem.
Yeah. So I love this debate. I was trying to remain silent, but like personal disclosure before I start talking, I work at Google. So it's been very interesting to hear all the thoughts during these 2 days. And yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on a few things. So just a few examples. When you use something like Google Maps, right, and you're able to know what's the traffic and get a nice route because there's too much traffic or whatever, you know that because you know all the devices that are around, and you get to know like how many devices are stacked, and that's a pretty like powerful tool, right? It helps millions of people every day, and it saves time, which is the most valuable asset that we have. Another thing, I'm a photographer as well, an amateur photographer. I think Wally, you mentioned photos, right? Like I upload my pictures because of the benefit that I feel I get. In my case, one is the backup thing, right? If I lose my phone, you know, the pictures of my family and everything will always be there available to me. But also because of the, I don't know if you've seen the new Google Photos, like it has a great image recognition piece, right? So if you have millions of pictures in your database, you can search, for example, by location, or you can search by people and get access to all these pictures, right? So like we are talking so much about like intelligence assistance during these 2 days, and like I'm wondering like how is it possible like to build the ultimate intelligent assistance if you don't know as much as you can about the user, right? And I think that the debate should be more like around like how is this data treated, what is the security of this data, and how it is like what is done with it, more than if it's even needed to access it or not. Because if you want to build an intelligent assistant, you need to know as much as you can to make it meaningful, right? And we see this at Google. The more personalized service that we give, the more happy the users are, the better CSAT. We talk about effort with Ticketmaster today. If you want to give an effortless experience, why do you even need to ask something to the user? So with something like Google Maps, Google is able to understand without you saying anything, if you want and if you like accept it, where is your house and where is work, and every day in the morning let you know before you leave to work that there has been an accident and redirect you. So like, how can we build the ultimate assistance if we don't know as much as we can about you? That's I guess my question.
Anybody?
Well, I don't know. I think Waze has changed my life. So if I didn't have Waze or Google Maps and what they're doing with that data, you know, I think it's a classic example of I'm very, very open to consume that data that's out there, because it shaved hours off of commutes in many, many ways because there are routes that it takes me. So yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's something that I think is a pretty good statement in the fact that it's made life simpler in certain aspects of the data that I'm willing to consume that's out there and that's public, right? And that has had an immediate beneficial effect on my life in many, many ways. So I'm agreeing with you.
I think there's a boundary though.
Yeah.
And I think you look at, and I talked about this at the beginning on the keynote on day one, when you get really close, traffic information, I agree, is really useful stuff, but that's not personal, all right? Personal, I'm in traffic, so okay, I would share that, that's fine. My personal genome sequence, my detailed personal medical records, my detailed personal financial affairs, I want my intelligent assistant to help me pay my bills with my bank. I'm unlikely to want to broadcast to Google, with all due respect, and I do like Google, so don't get me wrong. I don't have it down on Google, I don't have it down on Facebook. It's appropriateness. It's appropriate sharing. Again, go back to the norms of human relationship. Am I going to go and tell the concierge in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel what my bank balance is to get him to help me pay my bills? No, but he's a great helper to help me find the restaurant. So you guys will have your place. But in the end, my data and my life is my life, and I will very much get very resentful, and you will do enormous brand damage if you come into my home and you try and read what I'm eating in my refrigerator, and you come into my home and you read my emails and you try and tell me what next. Then you've gone through the uncanny valley and you will alienate the brand. And I think you've highlighted that very well. There's a fine line between being useful and being just plain annoying, which is what's happened to ad tech, and being creepy. And these are the things you have to be careful of.
And it's not the same line for everybody or every situation and every application. So to the point is there another question there? So to the point I was making earlier, we're moving towards something. We don't know exactly what. It may be a revolution. We have some ideals about when the technology is truly helpful to us personally. And I think we should be, sharing those happy instances, like getting us from here to there, and maybe reacting the way we do to the ones that slip over to creepiness in a lot of the situations. But mostly, let's try to reinforce what we see as intelligent assistance as we understand it, and drive some kind of common understanding. So my dream is, we have these get-togethers. Okay, I can do this. Probably our next one is 6 months from now, somewhere in Europe to be announced. In the meantime, we're all part of a community that's obviously shown interest in the opportunities created by moving towards intelligent assistance, and we have roles to play in defining what the terms mean to us individually and to us collectively. And, I strongly recommend you join our it's free, LinkedIn group called Intelligent Assistant Developers and Implementers, and we should start sharing stories and concerns and opportunities, and then we reconvene to meet face-to-face occasionally to have contemporaneous face-to-face discussions. And I want to thank everybody for being here and for just contributing such knowledge, and I'm just really pleased how this has ended up. And yeah, there's some negative sides, but there's a lot of opportunity out there. So I want to thank our panel for exposing some of this, and all of you. Thank you.
And thank you, Dan.